Someone told you that how you feel at 65 or 70 or 75 is simply how aging feels, that the fatigue is expected, the stiffness is normal, the memory gaps are inevitable, the declining strength, the shortness of breath climbing stairs, the poor sleep, the foggy thinking. All of it was bundled into a single explanation that shut down every further question. You're getting older. This is what it looks like. That is the biggest health lie told to seniors in the modern world. And it is costing people years, not years of life necessarily, but years of living. Years of mobility, clarity, energy, independence, and joy that are being surrendered to a narrative that the research flatly contradicts. The science of aging has changed profoundly in the last 2 decades. What we now know about biological age versus chronological age, about the gap between how old your birth certificate says you are and how old your cells, your arteries, your brain, and your muscles actually are, tells a completely different story than the one most seniors have been given. Most of what people attribute to aging is not aging. It is modifiable. It is addressable. And in many cases, it is reversible. Today I'm going to give you 6 specific lies within the big lie. 6 things you were told were inevitable that the research says are not. In this video, I'm going to expose 6 specific health beliefs that most seniors still accept as true. Beliefs that the peer-reviewed science now identifies as either completely false, significantly overstated, or so incomplete they function as misinformation. For each one, I'll show you what the evidence actually says, reference the specific studies, and give you the practical, evidence-based alternative that replaces the lie with something you can act on. We are talking about beliefs linked to outcomes including 40 to 50% unnecessary loss of muscle mass, preventable cognitive decline affecting 30% of older adults, and metabolic decline that research shows is 70% lifestyle-driven rather than age-driven. 6 lies. The truth behind each one. Let's begin. Lie number 1. The age excuse. Feeling tired all the time is just part of getting old. This is the most pervasive lie of all, and it is the one that does the most damage because it functions as a diagnostic stop sign. When fatigue is attributed to age, the investigation ends, and fatigue in older adults is almost never simply age. Here is the clinical reality. Fatigue in adults over 60 has a list of common, identifiable, treatable causes that is long and well established. Hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid, affects 20% of women over 60 and produces profound fatigue as its primary symptom and is correctable with medication. Anemia, most commonly B12 deficiency, iron deficiency, or the anemia of chronic inflammation, is present in approximately 10% of community-dwelling older adults and is a direct physiological cause of fatigue. Sleep apnea, present in 30 to 50% of adults over 60 and dramatically underdiagnosed, fragments sleep architecture so severely that patients wake exhausted regardless of how many hours they spent in bed. Vitamin D deficiency, present in up to 70% of older adults, directly impairs mitochondrial energy production and produces fatigue that responds measurably to correction. A study from the Mayo Clinic found that when adults over 65 presenting with fatigue underwent comprehensive metabolic evaluation, thyroid panel, CBC, B12, vitamin D, sleep assessment, a specific treatable cause was identified in over 72% of cases, not age. A treatable condition that had been left unaddressed under the assumption that fatigue was expected. The practical action. If you are chronically fatigued, bring this to your physician as a primary complaint, not a secondary mention after the real reason for your visit. Request a comprehensive evaluation including TSH, CBC, B12, vitamin D level, and a sleep apnea screening. These are standard tests. They require a blood draw and a conversation, and they identify the treatable cause that is almost always present. Age does not make you tired. Untreated conditions make you tired, and conditions can be treated. Lie number 2. The muscle myth. Losing strength and muscle after 60 is inevitable. This lie costs people their independence, literally. The loss of muscle mass, sarcopenia, is the primary driver of falls, the primary driver of reduced mobility, and the primary driver of the loss of independence that most older adults fear above almost everything else. And it is overwhelmingly preventable, mostly reversible, and driven far more by behavior than by biology. Here is the truth. Human muscle tissue retains its capacity to respond to resistance training at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. The anabolic response, the muscle-building response to exercise and adequate protein, does diminish somewhat with age, but it does not disappear. And the primary driver of sarcopenia in most older adults is not an age-related loss of anabolic capacity. It is disuse. It is inadequate dietary protein, and it is inadequate resistance training. A landmark study from Tufts University, led by Dr. Maria Fiataroni, demonstrated that nursing home residents averaging 87 years of age, undertaking a program of progressive resistance training, gained an average of 174% increase in muscle strength over 10 weeks. 87-year-old nursing home residents, building strength by 174% in 10 weeks. A second study from the University of Oklahoma found that previously sedentary adults over 65 who began a resistance training program showed muscle protein synthesis rates comparable to those of much younger adults and gained similar absolute amounts of lean mass over equivalent training periods. The practical prescription: resistance training 2 to 3 times per week, not marathon running, not spinning classes, resistance, working against load. That can be bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, free weights, or weight machines. The specific modality matters less than the principle. Your muscles must be challenged against resistance to respond with growth. Paired with adequate protein, 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, spread across meals, muscle maintenance and growth at any age over 60 is not just possible, it is well documented. The lie that you must simply watch your strength decline was never true. It was just convenient for everyone who didn't want to tell you the work it takes to prevent it. Lie number 3, the brain resignation. Memory loss and mental decline are a normal part of aging. This is the lie that frightens people most, and it is the one where the gap between the cultural narrative and the scientific evidence is most dramatic. Age-related cognitive decline, the gradual slowing of processing speed, the mild difficulty with name retrieval, the occasional word-finding pause, is real, but it is modest. It is largely functional rather than structural, and it is dramatically modifiable. What most people experience and call normal aging of the brain is not primarily age. It is neuroinflammation from poor dietary patterns. It is vascular insufficiency from uncontrolled blood pressure and blood sugar. It is sleep deprivation that prevents the glymphatic clearance of amyloid. It is social isolation that removes the primary stimulus for neuroplasticity. It is sedentary behavior that eliminates the BDNF production that maintains hippocampal volume. Remove those modifiable drivers, and the inevitable decline looks very different. A study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project, one of the most comprehensive longitudinal cognitive aging studies ever conducted, found that adherence to a brain-protective dietary and lifestyle pattern called the MIND diet was associated with a cognitive age that was 7.5 years younger than chronological age in the highest adherence group. 7.5 years of cognitive aging, reversed by dietary pattern. A study from the University of British Columbia, which I've referenced in multiple videos, found that aerobic exercise specifically increased hippocampal volume in older adults. In a brain that is supposed to be shrinking, exercise grew the memory center. The biology of neuroplasticity does not expire at 60. It requires the right conditions to activate. The practical actions are the ones I've described across multiple videos in this series, and they converge here into a clear pattern. Move your body aerobically 3 to 4 times per week. Eat a dietary pattern rich in polyphenols, omega-3 fats, and whole foods. Sleep 7 to 8 hours with adequate deep sleep stages. Maintain social connection. Challenge your brain with genuine novelty. These are not supplementary to cognitive health. They are the mechanism of it. Lie number 4, the metabolism falsehood. Your metabolism slows dramatically after 60. This lie has been repeated so consistently and for so long that it has shaped entire dietary industries, entire supplement categories, entire exercise programs, all built on the premise that the aging metabolism is a fundamentally broken engine that must be coaxed and supplemented and carefully managed. The premise is wrong. Or more precisely, it is far less true than you have been told. A landmark study published in Science in 2021, the most comprehensive metabolic rate study ever conducted, tracking over 6,400 people from infancy to age 95, found that metabolic rate is stable from approximately age 20 to age 60. Not gradually declining across those 4 decades. Stable. And from 60 to 90, the decline is approximately 0.7% per year, a modest, gradual reduction that accounts for a fraction of the metabolic changes most people attribute to aging. The weight gain, the body composition changes, the slower metabolism that most people in their 60s and 70s are experiencing. The study's authors concluded these are primarily driven by decreased physical activity and decreased muscle mass, both of which are behavioral and modifiable, not by an inexorable biological metabolic slowdown. A second study from Harvard Medical School found that adults over 60 who maintained regular resistance training and adequate protein intake had metabolic rates indistinguishable from those of adults 20 years younger with equivalent muscle mass. The muscle mass, not the age, determined the metabolic rate. The practical action is the same as lie number 2, because the lies are connected. Preserve and build muscle through resistance training. Maintain adequate protein intake. Stay physically active. These behaviors maintain the metabolic rate that the lie told you was already gone. You are not metabolically broken. You may be under-muscled and underactive. Those are addressable, starting this week. Lie number 5, the sleep resignation. Poor sleep is just what happens when you get older. This lie is perhaps the most physiologically consequential on this list. Because sleep is not a passive background feature of health. Sleep is when the most critical biological maintenance of your entire body occurs. And accepting poor sleep as an inevitable feature of aging is accepting the acceleration of virtually every age-related health decline simultaneously. The brain's glymphatic system, which clears amyloid and metabolic waste during deep sleep, requires adequate slow-wave sleep to function. The immune system's cellular repair and memory consolidation processes run during sleep. Growth hormone, which maintains muscle mass and metabolic function, is secreted primarily during slow-wave sleep. The cardiovascular system's overnight blood pressure dip, which is protective against hypertension-related organ damage, requires adequate sleep duration and quality. When sleep is chronically disrupted, fragmented, shallow, insufficient, all of these processes are compromised simultaneously, and the consequences accumulate in the brain, in the cardiovascular system, in the metabolic system, and in the immune system with every poor night. Here is what the research says about whether poor sleep is truly inevitable in older adults. It is not. It is common. Approximately 50% of adults over 65 report significant sleep difficulties. But common is not the same as inevitable. And the causes of poor sleep in older adults are overwhelmingly identifiable and addressable. A study from the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine found that CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, produced clinically significant improvements in sleep quality in 70 to 80% of older adults with chronic insomnia, outperforming sleep medications in long-term outcomes, and without the cognitive side effects I described in my medications video. The treatable sleep disruptors in older adults include undiagnosed sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, medication side effects including beta blockers and certain antidepressants, pain conditions disrupting sleep architecture, poor sleep hygiene practices, and anxiety-driven sleep initiation difficulty. Each of these has a specific intervention. None of them is just aging. The practical action. Bring sleep quality to your physician as a primary clinical concern. Ask specifically about sleep apnea evaluation. Ask about CBTI referral. Implement the sleep hygiene practices consistently. Cool bedroom, consistent sleep and wake times, no screens 45 minutes before bed, tart cherry juice in the evening for natural melatonin support. Sleep is a biological requirement that is worth fighting for, because everything else in this video depends on it. Lie number 6, the irreversibility illusion. It's too late to make a difference now. The final lie is the one that underlies all the others, and it is the most insidious because it does not frighten people, it simply exhausts them. It says, even if what I told you is wrong, you've already lived too long for change to matter. The damage is done. The window has closed. This is not what the science says, at all. The human body's capacity for positive adaptation to lifestyle change does not expire at any age that has been studied. The evidence spans every organ system. Cardiovascular fitness improves in response to exercise training at 80. Muscle mass grows in response to resistance training at 87. Hippocampal volume increases in response to aerobic activity at 70. Arterial stiffness reduces in response to dietary change at 75. Inflammatory markers fall in response to dietary pattern change at any age. A study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that adults who began regular physical activity in their 60s and 70s showed a 35% reduction in all-cause mortality risk compared to those who remained sedentary, and that this survival benefit was comparable in magnitude to the benefit seen in adults who had been active their entire lives. Starting late produced nearly the same outcome as starting young. A study from Tufts University found that dietary pattern improvement, increasing whole foods, reducing ultra-processed foods, increasing dietary fiber and healthy fats, produced measurable improvements in inflammatory markers, lipid profiles, and metabolic function in adults well into their 80s. The window does not close. The body remains responsive. The biology of adaptation does not carry an age expiration date. What the lie of irreversibility actually is permission. Permission to stop trying. Permission to stop investing in yourself. Permission to accept a diminished version of your life because change feels like too much effort for too little return. The science says the return is real, the investment is worthwhile, and the effort required is less dramatic than the lie would have you believe. I want to close with something I mean with complete sincerity. The biggest health lie told to seniors is not really a lie about the body. It is a lie about possibility. It is the cultural accumulation of a century of thinking about aging as decline, as a one-way story that moves from more to less, from capable to dependent, from vital to diminished. That story has shaped medicine. It has shaped patient expectations. It has shaped what people ask for and what they settle for and what they believe they deserve. The research tells a different story, not a story of infinite possibility or the abolition of aging, but a story in which the trajectory, the slope of the line, is dramatically more in your control than you were told, in which the distance between where you are and where your biology could take you is real, meaningful, and worth the daily investment of the habits I've described across every video in this series. You were told the lie when you were most vulnerable to it, when symptoms appeared and needed explaining, when the appointment was too short for nuance, when the simple answer felt kinder than the complex truth. The truth is kinder, because it comes with agency. And agency, the capacity to affect your own outcome, is the most health-protective thing a human being can possess at any age. If this video gave you something, a lie to release, a habit to begin, a conversation to start, a test to request, please consider subscribing. Every week I bring you this same quality of honest, evidence-based, genuinely useful information with nothing to sell and everything to share. Next week, I am going to cover the 5 specific daily habits that the longest-lived populations on Earth practice consistently. Habits from the Blue Zone's research that go far beyond diet, and that explain why some communities have dramatically lower rates of the very conditions we've been discussing across this entire series. That video will bring everything together in a way I think you will find genuinely moving. Until then, release the lie, begin the habit, and remember, the body listening to every decision you make today is more capable of responding than anyone told you. That is the truth, and you deserve to have it.